Near the courts of justice is a rather odd and somewhat unattractive memorial called the Great Siege Monument. It's a pretty ordinary piece of statuary by itself, whose style might be called Soviet Gothic, with enormous, bigger-than-life-size statues, which is fair enough under the circumstances, that are extremely muscular and highly stylized. The three figures you see here on the left represent faith, courage, and civilization. When I was researching prior to my visit to Malta, I started following the Times of Malta and the Malta Independent, two newspapers, but I rapidly learned that the real news in Malta seemed to be the province of bloggers, so I added a blog produced by a Maltese journalist I had never heard of before, named Daphne Caruana Galizia. Daphne was a huge critic of what she perceived as Malta's utterly corrupt government and became an irritating thorn in the side of not just the government, but many individual politicians, beginning with her first arrest back when she was 18 years old, and continuing to this date, some 5 years since she was murdered. Her final blogs hinted about a huge expose of the then president, his wife, and some of his cronies involving grafted corrupt money hidden away in Panama. You might recall reading about the Panama Papers, which was the source of her story. About 3 days that blog was due to be published, blogs are, or at least used to be, a very important news source on the island. Daphne finished up, went out of the house, and headed to the bank. She opened the door of her car, and the car exploded, killing her instantly. The prevalent conjecture to this day is that some friend, acquaintance, or fellow crook of the then president arranged for this. There was a police investigation, but it was at best incompetent, and from what I read, sounded like an extensive government cover-up. The family would not give up, however, and continued to demand the truth. Eventually, the local police fingered a couple of triggermen and had them jailed, but as I know, the instigators of this murder still walk the streets of the city, or at least some city, and breathe fresh air. Since her death, the government has waged a continuous effort not just to discredit her, but to make her disappear from local memory. She is to this day, and she's been dead for 5 years, still the subject of slap suits from the government and some of their hangers-on, designed to shut her up, as well as those who followed. Quite soon after her murder, her supporters assembled flowers and a portrait and held a vigil here at this statue every night. By morning every day, the local police trashed the memorial and disposed of it. I think that tells us pretty much all we need to know about it. If you think this content is interesting or useful, please like, share, and subscribe. This will help the channel grow. Travel content often involves a lot of history, and history can be really word-heavy, heavy enough that the details often don't make it into a video blog. If you care to dig deeper, you can visit my regular blog on WordPress, where you'll find deep dives, travel tips, reviews, warnings, and the nuts and bolts on how to travel safely and conveniently. If you'd like to keep up with my posts, you can follow me on Twitter. The addresses are on your screen.